Good morning. So in 2017, a survey done on the Fortune 500 CEOs by a major research firm asked a question to these Fortune 500 CEOs, and these are Fortune 500 companies belonging to all kinds of industries, automotive included. And the question was, of all the business models that you see here, which one is going to be most disruptive for your industry? And as you can see here, product as a service emerged as the most disruptive business model across all Fortune 500 companies. And when I saw the result, I was intrigued by it because nowhere is this business model more applicable and relevant and pertinent than in the commercial vehicle industry. And why is that? Is because for the past 120 odd years, in the trucking industry, the question was, here's a truck I have bought, what can I do with it now? Do I go long haul, short haul? Do I do, what kind of vocation, duty cycle should I focus? That was about, for the past, I would say, 115 years. For the last 5 years, the dynamics have changed. Now the question is, here are the services the truck needs to provide in an urban environment: stop and go traffic, noise regulations, emission regulations, parking regulations, last mile delivery. Here are the services the truck needs to provide. What can the truck do for me? And that completely changes the paradigm for everybody in the industry, because now truck as a service has become the reality. And if you think that is how it's going to last for the next several years, I would challenge you to think again, because now the question is, what happens thereafter? And if you've seen any other industry around us where this transition or this transformation has happened from product to service, it doesn't end there. One more comes very soon, which is from service to solution. So we're now talking about truck as a solution. And what's going to drive that? I believe that big data is going to drive that. Big data driving big knowledge, which is going to drive big decisions, so that at the end of the day, the truck that, whether it's Daimler or whether it's Hino or Tata, anybody sells, needs to solve certain problems. And that's how the truck becomes a solution. You see, my daughter is 10 years old, and she expects that when dad buys something from Amazon, it should reach our doorstep next day. My son is 2 years old. I'm pretty sure by the time he's going to be 10, he'll expect when dad buys something from Amazon, it should reach our doorstep next hour. Something is going to bring that freight to our doorstep within the next hour, in about 5, 10 years from now. It's going to be a truck, but that truck needs to navigate through highly congested areas, has to deliver on mission-critical basis, and something is going to drive that truck. Yes, of course, powertrain, electric mobility will drive it, as Wilford mentioned. But what's going to really drive that truck is going to be data, loads and loads of data. There was a time when Walmart would punish its vendors if the truck reached a Walmart bay late. About 8 months ago, that changed. There's a new policy now. Walmart now punishes its vendors. I mean, that's the way for them to discipline their vendors. For those of you who think Walmart is a retail company, think twice. It is the most aggressive supply chain company. And now they are slapping fines on their vendors if the truck reaches the bay early. The idea now is to get that truck at that bay on time, every time. Telematics can enable that. But today, telematics is reactive. The information that telematics generate is then fed to the fleet manager and to the driver. It's the onus on the driver now to navigate and make sure that the truck reaches the bay on time every time. But if you add sensors, if you add traffic predicting software, ITS, social media integration, now all of a sudden it becomes possible to get that truck at the bay on time every time. So I'm talking about big data driving both panoramic as well as granular view into a fleet's operations. And this is where the OEMs come in and the tier 1 suppliers come in. I'm going to talk about it a little later. So as freight moves, we talked about that freight that will be in our doorstep, right? Most likely it'll come from China. I live in Toronto in Canada. Let's say that a container lands in LA or Vancouver port, and then it moves in a truck. So there are lots of steps in between the point when the container lands in a port to the point that box reaches on our doorstep. So you can see them all here, right from container and trailer tracking all the way to driver and technician training, and everything in between now is generating loads and loads of data, right? And all that data is now coming to clouds, and companies such as us, as Fleet Complete, for example, we aggregate the data from all these sources and create mission-critical solutions that helps OEMs improve the business models, prepare for truck as a solution, helps tier ones devise smart technologies, helps trailers become smarter. One of our partners, Phillips Industries, what they're doing with TrailerNet is an example of that. So right now, the idea is to make mobility smart, freight mobility smart, and data is enabling all of that. So Convex, which is our massively scalable big data platform, is an example of that. So what happens in a big data platform in the telematics context in the commercial vehicle industry is data from OEMs, data from tier one, tier two system suppliers, such as powertrain suppliers, chassis suppliers, other suppliers of critical components bumper to bumper, data from infrastructure providers such as cities, municipalities, governments, data from financial institutions, insurance companies, leasing companies, and most importantly for us, data from our fleet customers come into this platform called Convex, which is a big data analytics platform, and that enables us to add layers and layers of analysis on the data and make it mission critical and useful and bespoke for our client partners, which are fleet managers. At the same time, we monetize and co-monetize data for all these parties from which we aggregate data. So this is the new reality now where data is helping OEMs develop specific solutions, helping a brake manufacturer develop smart brakes, a transmission manufacturer develop a smart transmission, an axle manufacturer develop a smart axle. It's helping cities reduce congestion. We are part of Vision Zero network, which helps reduce congestion and emission levels in cities across North America to zero levels. So these are some of the realities that are emerging now, and all of that is enabled by powerful analytics. So I'm going to show you an example of what really data can do. So far, it's all theoretical. Here's a practical example. I'm going to request you to play this video animation, please, if you can, from there. So this is my city of Toronto. It's about, as you can see in the northeast corner, about 2 a.m. now. Traffic is flowing. Those data points that you see, those little dots, those are vehicles that are Fleet Complete enabled in the city of Toronto. 5 a.m., you can see the city is getting busy and busy. Let's stop this video for a second now, at this stage, if you can. All right, so now, you see that there are certain points where there's congestion, there are certain points where traffic is flowing smoothly. Think about it. If at a given intersection at a point, at 8:36 a.m., I were to slice and dice the data. This is just one data point, by the way. This is just one data point, location, lat long, right? If we were to cut and slice this data, let's say by a given OEM, let's say that OEM is Ford, right? So we now slice the data by saying, at that particular intersection where I'm seeing congestion or heavy traffic, how many vehicles are Ford? And if we see that most vehicles in that intersection at 8:36 a.m. are Ford vehicles, and there's an electronic billboard right next door, or right next to that highway, guess whose ad that billboard is going to beam, or should beam? That's one example. Now, if you are, let's say, a tire manufacturer, and you want to put a new retail footprint in the city, just by adding harsh braking and harsh acceleration on top of this, you can now find out where are the areas where you should be putting your next tire retail footprint, because that's where most tire service and repair is going to happen. And that's just one more data point on top of this, which is on top of lat long, harsh braking and harsh acceleration. Now, if you aggregate that across North America or Europe, now you will know which cities are the ones where most harsh braking happens, because that is where, as an OEM, let's say Daimler, is going to put most of its brake parts and services, because that is where demand is. Now you can plan for that. You can now optimize your warranty expenses and do all kinds of things, just by two simple data points, lat long and harsh braking. That's the power of data analytics. Now, we're not even getting started with what else is possible, because I'm going to take a couple of more hours to cover that aspect. Next slide, please. So the real change that Convex, which is a big data analytics platform that is massively scalable and purpose-built for the commercial vehicle industry, is enabling is it's enabling a business transition, not only for ourselves, but for the entire commercial vehicle ecosystem. There was a time in the past when a business was considered successful if you had assets. The more assets you had, the more successful your business. As a fleet, if I had 5,000 vehicles in my fleet, I'm a very successful fleet. Nowadays, that's no longer the metric for success. Now it's all about transactions. If you own transactions, the more transactions you own today, the more successful you're considered. Once again, that's not the future. The future is completely different. The future is how many interactions do you own? Every time the truck interacts with the world outside and the world outside interacts with the truck, we want to own that interaction. What you do with that, there are business models to follow. But owning that interaction is most important. That's a real change Convex is enabling. So here's how the commercial vehicle market in terms of telematics is evolving. In terms of user base, it's going to 3x over 2016 to 2025 period. In terms of revenues, it's going to 4x. What that means is in the future, there'll be more value-added services added on top of what we already have. It could be video telematics, track and trace, et cetera. And then there is blockchain, which is changing everything, decentralized distributed network, which basically facilitates new business models that you can see here. Most important, I would say, is vehicle maintenance, vehicle service, smart contracts, and then 5G. Once 5G comes in, that is when HDMA members, mostly suppliers, will benefit from it because that makes possible every system to be lit up to communicate with clouds. So right now, which is a $4 billion industry, and that's managed by driver management, order management, vehicle management, and fuel management, is going to 10x over the next 10 years. What you see is the tip of the iceberg. What you do not see, what lies underneath, is 10 times as big, and that's going to manifest in the form of warranty optimization, prognostics, ADAS, all kinds of business models driven by data. So once again, my request to you, embrace data. That's the future, and the future is here right now. The future of commercial vehicle industry is a green truck. It's going to be green for the environment. It's going to be green for businesses. The future for the commercial vehicle industries is going to be a safe truck, safe for the person driving it, safe for people around it. The future will be a connected truck. It's going to connect to the world outside. The world outside will be connected to this truck. You add it all together, it's going to be a smart truck. Are we smart enough to embrace the future is the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.